Wait, you did it?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Shopping today, we did it.
SubhanAllah. What's done? Oh, man. Try to get rid of it as soon as
We try to keep some reserves throughout
you
the
can
year.
keep reserves. You're allowed to keep reserves. I mean, what's the average ask? A month.
No.
Per person. How many per month? A month?
10, anywhere between 10 to 15.
So you give out 10 to 20 grand a month of zakat. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you have to keep 120. You got to keep it, right?
The thing is, not everyone pays minimum dollar. People pay throughout the year.
Okay.
But like, yeah, I keep it on 50.
The wakil, just for the sake of it, the wakil, your wakils, where NBIC is a wakil, an agent, is allowed to keep reserves. The individual has to give out his zakat right away. You know that? That's the fiqh. So you're allowed to keep reserves. How much are you leaving? All right, take care. How much? Say.
Okay,
I said
we have to have a meeting.
you're allowed to keep reserves.
Okay. I assume it doesn't not like lost out, right? Like you pay just got, but you still have 10K. It's not like yours that got something sitting there. It's a pool, right?
It's a pool. It's a pool. It's the individual. He has to give out his zakat right away.
That isn't.
But the agency can keep reserves.
So it's not in pocket. It's a pool. Okay, got it.
Yeah. All right, take care. Sound like Ahmed. Oh, Ahmed, say, go to the bathroom and get that thing. Use it right now. It's there. Run. It's dope. Yeah. Now, yeah, wait, it's a good recital. Where'd you hear? The wood, yeah. I guess. Yeah, would be a scene, and then the stories of the awliya. Give me your phone now. Open up NBIC YouTube channel. Yeah, Raheel. Yeah, wait, I don't want to interrupt your talk. Raheel. يا رحيل الدين يا ولد يا رحيل رحيل اسمع push it on the click on that, lower the volume, give me the comments. Did you do it? You know how to use it, right? You have to melt it in your hand. Did you take the whole thing? Yes, take the whole thing. No, just tell me if there are any comments over there. Also them. All right. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب من شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب شر النفاثات في العقد من شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس مالك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس مالك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أعوذ برب الناس مالك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب يحضرون. أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك رب يحضرون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدعو مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. سلام على نوح في العالمين إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنه من عبادنا المؤمنين. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء هو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء هو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى. حمزة أنا يبشد سيدنا ذكرته. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. رضيت بالله ربا سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. 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 اللهم إني أسألك من فجاءة الخير وأعوذ بك من فجاءة الشر. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت عليك توكلت وأنت رب العرش العظيم. ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشأ لم يكن ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر نفسي ومن شر كل دابة أنت آخذ بناصيتها إن ربي على صراط مستقيم. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث ومن عذابك أستجير. ولا تكلني إلى نفسي ولا إلى أحد من خلقك طرفة عين. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم إني أسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في ديني ودنياي وأهلي ومالي. اللهم استر عوراتي وآمن روعاتي. اللهم احفظني من بين يدي ومن خلفي وعن يميني وعن شمالي ومن فوقي. وأعوذ بعظمتك أن أغتال من تحتي. اللهم أنت خلقتني وأنت تهديني وأنت تطعمني وأنت تسقيني وأنت تميتني وأنت تحييني وأنت على كل شيء قدير. أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وعلى كلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا وبك نحيا وبك نموت وعليك نتوكل وإليك النشور. أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم فتحه ونصره ونوره وبركته. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم وخير ما فيه وخير ما قبله وخير ما بعده وأعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم وشر ما فيه وشر ما قبله وشر ما بعده. اللهم ما أصبح بي من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر على ذلك. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه زنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله عدد ما خلق في السماء. سبحان الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. سبحان الله عدد ما بين ذلك. سبحان الله عدد ما هو خالق. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في السماء. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. الحمد لله عدد ما بين ذلك. الحمد لله عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في السماء. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما بين ذلك. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما هو خالق. الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في السماء. الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في الأرض. الله أكبر عدد ما بين ذلك. الله أكبر عدد ما هو خالق. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في السماء. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في الأرض. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما بين ذلك. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. حمد يحيي ويميت على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله. صلاة وسلام دائمين بدوام ملك الله وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد المفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله. صلاة وسلام دائمين بدوام ملك الله عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد المفتاح باب رحمة الله صلاة وسلام دائمين بدوام ملك الله وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاء المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا ولا يمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردن الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. وآية لهم أن حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين. وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين. وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين. ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون. ونفخ في الصور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون. فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون. إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم. سلام قولا من رب رحيم. سلام قولا من رب. امتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم عاهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم. ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون. هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون. اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون. ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون. ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون. ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون. وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين. أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون. واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون. فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون. أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم. الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون. أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم. إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون. اللهم إنا نستحفظك ونستودعك أدياننا وأبداننا وأنفسنا وأهلنا وأولادنا وأموالنا وكل شيء أعطيتنا. اللهم اجعلنا وإياهم في كنفك وأمانك وعياذك من كل شيطان مريد وجبار عنيد وذي بغي وذي حسد ومن شر كل ذي شر إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم جملنا بالعافية والسلامة وحققنا بالتقوى والاستقامة وأعذنا من موجبات الندامة إنك سميع الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وأولادنا ومشايخنا وإخواننا في الدين وأصحابنا ولمن أحبنا فيك ولمن أحسن إلينا والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات يا رب العالمين. وصلى اللهم على عبدك ورسولك سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وارزقنا كمال المتابعة له ظاهرا وباطنا في عافية وسلامة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Just as a reminder for everybody, tonight is one of the 4 nights in which dua is answered. In fact, the Laylatul Eid were mentioned, and also Laylatul Nisf in Shaban, Laylatul Qadr, every Thursday night, which is, we call it Thursday night, but it's between Thursday and Friday. And Imam Malik used to stay up, because some people talk about the first night before Rajab, and others say that that's a bid'ah. So let's look at what the Salaf used to do. Malik used to stay up the first night of every month. So if someone says to you, the first of Rajab, no, there's no basis for it. Firstly, there is a basis. But secondly, you tell them, fine, don't do that. The first of every month. He considered it worthy of staying up, and he used to stay up that whole night. But either way, I'm personally going to, inshallah, make it for Maghrib here. If not Maghrib to Isha, but at least one of the two Isha'ain, Maghrib or Isha. And then, inshallah ta'ala, we should all have Ihya al-Layl. Sometimes the end of Ramadan is sad, but from another aspect, sometimes month of Ramadan, there's so many people and there's so many things to do that there's hardly actually any private time for your own private ibadah, if you think about it. From one aspect, it's wonderful to see, it's energizing and wonderful to be with the Jama'ah to do the ibadat. But on the other aspect from it, there's like never any private time. And if you have done ibadah in private ever before, you realize it has its own madhaq. It has its own taste to it in your heart. And so if you haven't, then you should try to do this, because this is one of the things that it's what's going to save a person in their times of hardship. And it's going to be a source of a person's success and tawfiq is the ibadah that they do privately. And one of the best is getting up in the middle of the night and reciting, doing tahajjud from the Mus'haf with long recitations, which is allowed to pick up the Quran in the Mus'haf. Maybe not in the Hanafi method, but in the other madahib, you're allowed to pick up the. And I'm sure you'll find a different opinion in the Hanafi method. There's no method with only one opinion on matters. There's always different, especially in nawafil and things like that. You'll find it has its own nur, its own madhaq, and you have your own uns with Allah after that, and you end up with your own asrar with Allah. This is true. There's no way, not possible, that you could do something private between yourself and Allah, and then Allah does not reciprocate with something private between you and Him. What does it mean private between you and Him? He creates something for you that you can't say to other people. They won't understand it. He put a barrier between ever becoming public, right? Because it'll be such a thing that you won't be able to speak it to other people. They'll think you're crazy, or they'll think you're, as Allah said about Sayyidina Zakaria, nada rabbahu nida'an khafiyya, right? He had to keep his dua secret. If he publicized that dua for a child when he was that old and his wife was barren, then people would laugh at him. People would think his request is insane, or that they would be offended by it, because he's basically saying that they weren't good enough to be his successors, and he's asking Allah for a successor. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make that something secret between you and him. And Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, he once visited Medina, and he witnessed Imam Malik praying all by himself without him knowing that he witnessed him throughout the entire night. And he would listen outside of his house, and he found one time he would recite the Quran straight through in his salah. And sometimes he would just repeat a passage. He would repeat that passage over and over and over and over and over. And sometimes he would repeat one verse over and over and over and over. and then come out for Fajr with that same wudu of Isha, having done Qiyam the entire night. And Abdullah bin Mubarak said, then he prayed Fajr with the people, or he prayed Fajr in the masjid, and he sat for his majlis after Fajr, and he said, and the nur was shining on his face. And then Imam Malik, maybe he noticed Abdullah bin Mubarak staring at him, so he commented and he said, if somebody wants something between him and Allah, oh, I know, Abdullah bin Mubarak himself asked him. He asked him, right? I see you're a man of khushu'ah, right? From where do you get it? He said, if someone wants something between themselves and Allah, then he should worship Allah privately in a way that nobody can see him. Then Allah Ta'ala will create something between you and him. And also this path, it happens slowly over time. It doesn't happen with one big push or 2-3 good years or 4 or 5 good years. You can't, there's no shortcuts to the best things in life, has no shortcuts, if you think about it. All you go on the internet and you see some guy with a scheme. Okay. Hey, listen, guys, look at my bank account. It's proof. And he shows you the proof, right? He shows you, who knows if it's proof, it's doctored, right? It's just like it's his cell phone showing how much income he has, and a graph showing that he is earning 6 digits within 2 months. This, whatever it is, even if it's true, it's a short-term truth and it's a lie, right? Nothing good in life happens with shortcuts. Only happens by doing things over a long period of time. And if you're going to do something over a long period of time, it has to be something where it's certain things to be done. You can't keep a mode of intensity for 25 years, right? Intensity is not going to happen for 20 years. So there are sprints throughout the path to Allah Ta'ala, but there's essentially, there are certain things that Allah is watching for what you're going to do. Are you going to be consistent? And that consistency, sometimes it happens and there is sometimes a monotony to it. And sometimes you enjoy every minute of it, but it seems like, I don't know if I'm advancing or not, right? But you enjoy every minute of it. That over time is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking for. That's why it's called istiqamah. Istiqamah is to be established firmly over a period of time. You can't be mustaqim. If you're not described as mustaqim, if you're steadfast for a year, right? It's steadfast for a long period of time, like consistency. Okay. Someone once said, you're never consistent. You come late, you come early. And the guy responds, he said, well, it's hard to be consistent all the time. Right? So the whole point of consistency is that, boom, there all the time, over 5, 10, 20 years. Okay, that's what you're looking for. So that's one thing. Second thing is, as we mentioned tonight, being a night never to be neglected. And then beyond that, there is no such thing as having a downward after Ramadan, because Allah Ta'ala is always opening his gates. His gates are always open. So it's going to be Eid on Monday. Boom, Wednesday between Dhuhr and Asr. You can't forget about this. It's a special hour. Allah gave the victory of Battle of Khandaq on that hour. And as there's a clip with Habib Omar, he says, min fawaid al-du'a, he said of dua, is that we know that it's answered as it is, or Allah Ta'ala will give you something better than it and save you from something worse, or he gives you the reward in akhirah. So then he says, if you made dua, let's say 10 times for something, and then he answers you, the answer counts for one of those dua. He answered one specific dua. The other ones, for a wisdom that Allah has, that they were not accepted, you will be rewarded for them in the akhirah. So that you should know that you're not only receiving one of the 3 options, you may receive all of the 3 options. And a person may have been informed that his dua is answered. What does he do? He gives shukr, he does ibadah, and he continues making that dua, right? So that it counts for him as hasanat and his akhirah. You good?
I'm good.
You just want to stand? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to
روى الحسن البصري رضي الله عنه أنه قال أدركت أقواما وصحبت طوائف كان يأتي على أحدهم 50 سنة ونحوها ما طوى منهم أحد ثوبا قط لفراش ولا نوم. Hassan al-Basri, he said he met some people, and this is why Hassan al-Basri, he said he met 70 Sahaba, over 70 Sahaba, and he said some of them you would say they're Majnoon. He's saying that to the second generation, that you would say some of them are Majnoon. SubhanAllah. But here he says, أدركت أقواما وصحبت طوائف. No, here he doesn't say they're Sahaba. He just said groups and people. It would, one of them, maybe 50 years pass, 50 years, ما طوى منهم أحد ثوبا قط لفراش ولا نوم. None of them once put out a blanket for sleeping at night. ولم يأمر أهله قط بعمل طعام, and has never asked his wife to cook food. ولا جعل بينه وبين الأرض فراشا, nor ever purchased or put down a mattress. ولقد كان يأكل أحدهم الأكل فيود أنها حجر في بطنه. Okay. And one of them will eat a meal and he wished there was nothing but a pebble in his stomach. وما كانوا يفرحون بشيء من الدنيا أقبل ولا يتأسفون على شيء منها أدبر. And they don't get happy with the dunya. If some nice dunya comes to them, it doesn't make them happy. And if they lose some of it, it doesn't make them sad. ولا هي أهون عليهم من هذا التراب الذي تطؤونه بأرجلكم. And it's dunya to them is less valuable than the dirt that you walk on. ولقد كان أحدهم يعيش عمره مجهودا شديد الجهد. And he lives his entire life striving and struggling. Okay? Striving and struggling. المال الحلال إلى جنبه. But he has access to wealth. فيقال له, and he's told, why don't you take some of this money and make your life easier? He would say, La wallahi, I fear if I take some of this wealth, it would corrupt my heart and my deen. These are serious zuhad. You know, that it may cross your minds, oh, they do is ibadah all day and all night and they fast. Well, how do they become happy, right? Well, firstly, this ibadah is extremely sweet inside the heart of a person. And on top of that, you have to understand very well, Allah's mu'amala with the awliya, He knows how to make them happy. And you don't know how they live. And sometimes we were just talking about some of the shuyukh that are like absolute mountains. They've been doing the same thing for 40 and 50 and 60 years. In the same maqam, in other words, even physically, even in the same masjid, right? Or in the same job they've been doing. Okay. Teaching and afkar, and da'wah and wa'ad. Okay. And you wonder yourself, like, don't you want to do something else? Thing is, with these people, they're human beings just like you and me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows how to make them happy. And you don't know what happens privately in their personal life. And I'm not talking even about spiritual gifts, even worldly things that happen in their life beyond their fathom of what their imagination could ever fathom. And Allah has given it to them. And He's won their hearts. So they say, out of shukr of Allah for this ni'mah that Allah has given me, I'm going to devote myself to this. And he's devoting himself out of shukr. You think to yourself, like, he's talented. He could have still taught, but also done this, that, and the other. Or earned himself this or that. And still taught on the side. But no, these awliya Allah Ta'ala, Allah's mu'amala with them is that He gives them, He knows exactly what it is that they truly and secretly want. And always, sometimes they themselves didn't know or didn't even imagine, and Allah has given it to them earlier in His life. So He said from that moment, there's literally nothing else He wants from this hayat dunya except to give shukr to Allah for that ni'mah that He has. It could be spiritual gift, it could be a physical gift, it could be a worldly gift, it could be something in his family, it could be something in his marriage, it could be something you don't know. Everyone's different, right? That's as insignificant what it is, but it's something that Allah has given him that reward, and all this person's heart now is devoted to is to be grateful for that ni'mah. So don't ever imagine and ask yourself, well, what are they doing this whole time? Also, you don't understand, okay, that the sweetness of this ibadah and this dhikr, it doesn't stop. It's a constant increase. Imam al-Baghawi in Surah al-Fatiha, he discusses the question, why do we ask ourselves and say, Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim, guide us to the right path? What if we're already on Ahl Sunnah? Khalas, we studied the Aqidah. You could study it for a week or two or a month. What else? Well, we're on the Sirat al-Mustaqim, right? He says, because in the Aqidah to Ahl Sunnah, guidance never ends. It always keeps going up. Okay. And he says, on top of that, it's not just hidayah, it's ahwal. Spiritual states have no end. Maqams with Allah have no end. Sakina inside your heart has no end. And the sweet and the madhaq, or the sweetness of ibadah, it has no end. Whereas sweetness of food could have an end. Even too much sugar in your mouth, it can make you vomit, right? It's no good. So if you think about sweetness, it does have a limit. Fruit has certain sweetness. Now we have artificial candies, right? Alhamdulillah, we're very educated about it now, right? And we have direct experience, mushahada, not even mushahada, haqq al-yaqeen, right? About the onliners don't know this, but we've had our junk food hour after our dhikrs in the last 10 days. But there is a limit. Like, it can't get sweeter than certain things. Even if it gets sweeter, you don't like it, right? So sweetness of the tongue has a limit. Sweetness of the heart has no limit, right? SubhanAllah, it has no limit. Sweetness of the heart has no limit. SubhanAllah. ويروى عن سلمان الفارسي رضي الله عنه. It's narrated. The whole book is يروى. That means they're tales, they're stories. That's why he wrote this book, to give you the things that are on the fringe of the hadith, right? That are really interesting, okay? But he wouldn't put it as a narration. ويروى عن سلمان الفارسي رضي الله عنه أنه تزوج امرأة من كندة يقال لها صواب. Salman al-Farisi, the Persian, he married a woman from Kinda. Her name is Sawab. فأتاها ووقف بباب البيت ونادى باسمها فلم تجبه. So he came to her house. Now that they're married, he went to her house. He said, Ya Sawab. She didn't answer. He said, Ya هذه أخرسائي أنت أم صماء لا تسمعين. So he said, Ya هذه means, we don't have an expression for that. Oh, you. Are you deaf or mute? Okay. قالت يا صاحب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. O companion of the Messenger of Allah, peace be upon him, neither deaf nor mute. ولكن العروس تستحي أن تتكلم. But every newlywed bride is embarrassed to talk like this from outside the house, right? Which makes sense. Okay. فدخل المنزل. So he entered the house. It's now that they're married. فإذا بالأستار والأرياش ولباس الديباج. And he saw all of feathers, like peacock feathers, other fancy feathers, dibaj, which is a type of cloth, and all sorts of fanciness. فقال يا هذه أبيتك هذا محموم فدثرته أم تحولت الكعبة في كندة. He says, is this a house that this is your house and it's been decorated like this? Or is it the Kaaba now? Because it was so decorated. Is the Kaaba now in Yemen? Kinda is in Yemen. Ancient kings. The Kindas are like the ancient royalty. قالت لا يا صاحب رسول الله. No, O Messenger of Allah. لكن العروس تزين بيتها. But a bride will always decorate her house for her new husband. فرفع رأسه فرأى قدما وقوفا على رأسه قد أتوه بالماء والطعام. Now, Kinder, remember, these are royalty. He looks up, and now servant is behind him with water. He looks to the left, the servant behind him with food. فقال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, I heard the Messenger, peace be upon him, said, من نام على موثور ولبس المشهور وركب المنظور وأكل الشهوات لم يرح رائحة الجنة. He said, whoever sleeps on that which is soft, all right, and wears what the people love, clothes that people love and people will talk about, وَرَكِبَ الْمَنْظُورِ, and rides something that people would want to look at. وَأَكَلَ الشَّهَوَاتِ, and eats all the food that people would love to desire. He will never smell the taste of paradise. Okay? This means that it's essentially that if that's all his state and that's all he wants to do, okay? That's all he wants to do. And that's all he cares about doing. قالت يا صاحب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, O companion of the Messenger of Allah, أشهدك أن كل ما في البيت صدق لوجه الله تعالى. I make you a witness that everything in this house is a sadaqah now for the sake of Allah. It'll all go. وَكُلُّ مَمْلُوكٍ حُرٍ, all of the slaves here are free. وَكْفِنِي بُرًّا, just bring me some burr. أكفك اشتغال البيت ومحاولة العيش. Just bring you, your job is bring me some grain and I'll take care of everything else in the house. فقال لها رحمك الله رحمك الله وأعانك نفعنا الله ببركاتهم بمنه. And he said to her, may Allah have mercy on you and may Allah help you. And he accepted it. And that's how they lived after that. So now you look at someone like her, right? Why would she give up all this? You don't know what's making her happy. How happy is she that she just has Salman al-Farisi, right? As her husband now. You don't know what she feels for him. And she knows about him. And there's even a poem. An Egyptian woman wrote a poem. She's a girl. And she had just witnessed that she heard the Arabs are coming. They're going to conquer Egypt. It's a famous poem, actually. And it's a the Arabs are coming and they've conquered. And she's like, who are these people? And she's scared. Finally, she happens to live right outside of an area where the army of the Muslims came, right? And then she's like, who are these people who just took over our country? So she looks out the window. She sees Amr ibn As leading the salah. And she's watching and she's amazed, mesmerized. And then she writes a long poem. She's fallen in love with Amr ibn As. And she says he has a crooked tooth, like one of his teeth is overlapping another tooth. And she goes on and on and on about how awe-inspiring these conquering army are, how they line up for the prayer, what they wear, how they look, how their faces are different from our faces, right? The Bedouin, the nomads of Arabia, they have a different look than other people. They eat different foods. She found love. So you don't know how she felt about the Sahabi beforehand, that she wanted to marry him so much she'll give away everything for him. So anytime you see these acts of pieties, there's a reason people do it. These people, human beings, are no different from the time of Adam until Akhir Zaman. They have the same hopes and desires. Anytime you see someone doing ibadah far and above and beyond anybody else, there's a reason for it, right? Even some Sahaba asked this, O Messenger of Allah, why do we see some Shabbat, some people, nara rajulan yakhsha wa rajulan la yakhsha? Why do we see some people have so much khushu', right? And some people don't have any khushu', right? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, because Allah placed a nur in his heart, right? And he expanded his breast to it. That means he finds sweetness to it. That's all that everyone's looking for. Everyone is looking for the same thing, which is that tranquility in the heart. Some people are tricked though. They think it's attained by money, or it's attained by dunya only. No, it's attained by mainly khush ibadah, and all those other things are just supports and icings on top. ويروى عن إياس بن قتادة. By the way, someone let me know the time for Ishraq when it's in. وكان سيد قومه. 10 minutes until what? Until Ishraq, or when we pray? Until Ishraq. Until we pray. Okay. أنه نظر يوما إلى شعرة بيضاء في لحيته. Iyas ibn Qatada, he looked and he found a white hair in his beard. فقال اللهم إني أعوذ بك من فجأة الأمور. Oh Allah, I seek refuge from shocks. فجأة الأمور, a shock. أرى الموت يطلبني. I see now death is calling me. وأنا لا أفوت, and there's no escaping death. ثم خرج إلى قومه, then he went out to his people and he said, يا بني سعد, oh Bani Sa'd, قد وهبت لكم شبابي فلتهبوا لي شيبتي. I have given you my youth. I've served you in my entire youth. Now give me the gift of my old age. Meaning, I don't have to work anymore serving you, right? And serving the tribe. ثم دخل داره ولزم بيته حتى مات. And he retired in his house. Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Saqaf, rahimahullah, he passed away. Habib Abdul Qadir al-Saqaf, he used to come out to the people non-stop until even when he was paralyzed, he still came out to the people until he became so paralyzed around the age of 83, he got a final paralysis through strokes, constant strokes, that he couldn't even speak. Even then, he would come out to attend, right? Until finally he couldn't even sit in the wheelchair. He was so sick, he couldn't even sit in the wheelchair. But he used to always come out because he said the day in which the imams of Islam retire is no longer. There's no retirement. There can't be retirement because the dalal and the number of Muslims has increased, whereas the number of imams has decreased. So the workload on every imam has to be higher, right? So he said there's the day on which a sheikh retires to his sawma'ah or to his house and just does ibadah and leaves everything to the students, that day is done with. In the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Abdullah bin Umar basically essentially retired. And he used to say, شغلتني العبادة عن العلم. Knowledge has busied me from knowledge. Ibadah, worship, has busied me from knowledge. So go ask Sa'id ibn Musayyib. And he used to send people to Sa'id ibn Musayyib, right? Because the ibadah and the zuhud has busied him. He had produced an heir, Sa'id ibn Musayyib. And by the way, they used to think that Sa'id ibn Musayyib was the scholar mentioned in the hadith. يوشك أن تضرب أكباد الإبل فلا يجدون عالما أعلم من عالم المدينة. This famous hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, there will come a time people will strike the livers of the animals, which means moving the animals, all right, seeking knowledge, and they will not find anyone more knowledgeable than the scholar of Medina. The first whisperings of it was Sayyid Musayyib, Ibn Musayyib. But then when Imam Malik came around, they said, "Oh, it's definitely Malik, not Sayyid Musayyib," because people didn't really travel to him. He was the most knowledgeable of his generation, but people didn't really travel to him, right? But when Malik was teaching, everyone would travel to him. So they said it's definitely Malik, and there was no difference about it. وروي عن الحسن البصري رضي الله عنه أنه كان يقول يا ابن آدم هبط صحيفتك أو آدم هبط صحيفتك ووكل بك ملكان كريمان. Your book has come down with two angels, one on your right and one on your left. The one on your right writes your good deeds, the one on your right writes your bad deeds. Do what you wish now. Make increase or decrease, right? Until you leave this world, then your book will be closed. وَعُلِّقَتْ فِي عُنُقِكَ, and it will be hanging, the result of it, on your neck. All right, on the day of judgment, it will come out. اقرأ كتابك كفى بنفسك اليوم عليك حسيبا. You open your own book and read your own book. Okay. يا ابن آدم اعلم أنك تموت وحدك. You're going to die by yourself, enter your grave by yourself, and be resurrected by yourself, and be taken to account by yourself. So therefore, when you think of your deeds, only think of yourself. Which means that you shouldn't say, "Oh, I had to do it because everyone else was doing it." But you're going to be resurrected by yourself. You're not going to be resurrected as a group to say, "Oh Allah, we had to, it was the fashion, or everyone was doing it." Okay. "O son of Adam, لو أن الناس كلهم أطاعوا الله وعصيت أنت لم تنفعك طاعتهم." Son of Adam, if everyone does good or if everyone does bad, it's not going to benefit you what everyone else did as an excuse. وروي عن إبراهيم بن أدهم أنه لقي رجلا فقال له كيف حالك يا أبا إسحاق. The great Zahid Ibrahim ibn Adham, he met a man who said, "How are you, Abu Ishaq?" So he said, نرقع دنيانا بتمزيق ديننا. People patch up their dunya. They patch up their dunya by cutting up their deen to patch up their dunya. That's what people do. They cut up their deen to patch up their dunya. So neither do they have a nice dunya, nor do they have any deen left. SubhanAllah. So blessed is the abd that puts Allah first. Okay? وَجَادَ بِدُنْيَاهِ لِمَا يَتَوَقَّى, and does what he can for his dunya, but he puts Allah first. Now, anyone who's going to put Allah first, think Allah's going to leave their dunya? All of the Sahaba, none of them, not a single Sahabi, ended up by the end of his life in a worse condition than he began. All of them, nor neutral. They all ended up with a better worldly condition, dunyawi condition, than they began. All of them. SubhanAllah. And some of them had so much wealth that it made them uncomfortable. They were worried. Khabbab ibn al-Arat, he received so much wealth from the kharaj, the taxation on conquered territories. Just to give you a little fiqhi thing, taxes is haram with only a couple exceptions, such as the security of the country. But when we conquer territory, everything that the government owns, we tax that. If it's government property, we tax it. Let's say the government owns farmland, we tax it. The government owns apartments, we take the rent because we conquered it. Okay, that's called kharaj. Where does it go? The hakim at the time, Umar ibn Khattab, he distributed it based on when you became a Muslim, on the order of who became Muslim first. That's why he needed a calendar to keep track of years. Khabbab ibn al-Arat was one of the first Muslims. He'd get, this is kharaj. 2 months later, another conquest, more kharaj. Until one day, he started worrying. He said, maybe I did something wrong that Allah is giving me my paradise in this world before the next. Because he just, every time, gold sack of gold, sack of gold, sack of gold. Right? That Allah gave them so much ni'mah to the point they became bewildered, didn't even know what to do with it. Okay? And Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, just to show you, human beings are human beings, which means that we can attain these maqams. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, what did he do? Sayyidina Umar made him an Amir in Kufa. So he saw the people of Kufa, there are some big shots. So he built himself a big house in which he's going to run the affairs of the Ummah from that house. It'll be like a place of weapons depot, like the army. Back in the day, things were simple. You ruled, you had the army in one room, you had all the money in another room, and you lived in another room, like a one big Capitol building almost. And he built it up like this. And then word reached Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Sayyidina Umar didn't like it. This could be a sunnah then. If a Sahabi does this, it's a sunnah, right? Everyone's going to do it after him. So he sent one of his favorite workers, Muhammad ibn Maslama. And he said, go burn it down and take half of his property, half his wealth. Why? They said, why take half his wealth? It's because he earned it, but he earned it from halal trade. He said he earned it from halal trade when he's the governor. Everyone wants to trade with the governor, right? So it's not lawful wealth. So we don't know what's what. So we'll take half. So he went all the way. Muhammad ibn Maslama went up. He gave Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, Sa'ad, Mubashir bil Jannah. 10 Mubashir bil Jannah. But the law is the law. Well, he's a human just like us. He has a lot of money now. He's a ruler, right? And he's going to rule, right? And he's going to intimidate the hearts of people with his power. He's going to build this castle. No, Umar said no. So Muhammad ibn Maslama went. He gave him the letter. And Sa'ad ibn Waqqas knows you're not stopping Umar ibn Khattab. He gets his stuff, tells his wife, go pack your bags, get everything out that you want. And they what? Okay. They took all their possessions out of the house. Okay. And they sit watching, right? And everyone came to watch to see. And Muhammad ibn Maslama starts lighting it up and burning it down. Burn the whole thing down in front of everybody. Well, look at as a demonstration of worldliness, right? Everyone's going to take a step back before they plunge into the dunya because they see this is what's going to happen. So then Sa'ad said, now let's account your business, your stuff, all of your wealth, all your silver, all your gold, all your everything. He took half his silver, half his gold, half of everything that he owned, all your wife's drapes, clothes, bracelets, necklaces, everything, half of everything. Okay? And he put it all there. Then he looked, his sandals, he took half, he took one. Then Saad said, what's the value of half a sandal? Like, he took the left pair and left me the right pair. What's the value of that, for me or for you? He said, I do what Omar tells me to do. He said, take half of all his wealth. He took half his sandal. Okay. And then Saad said, okay, now that it's all done with, okay, the job is done, let's sit and have dinner, since this is still the emissary of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So he said, okay. So Muhammad Maslama took out a bag. He had bread and salt, and he would just dip the bread and salt and eat it. And Saad put out a dinner, all right, and he wouldn't eat from it. So he said, why don't you eat? He said, Omar didn't tell me to eat your food, right? I eat my own food. Because think about it, he said, Omar just accused all his wealth. So why would I eat your food now, right? So he didn't eat his food. So subhanAllah, this poem about people taking up their dunya, these people were just like us, except the nur of Nubuwwah came to them. That's the difference. And the nur of Nubuwwah is still out there, floating around. Okay, we can take it. Habib Omar says, the anwar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are floating around just like radio waves. When you turn on a radio station, it connects with a wave. That wave's been there, right? All the waves of the world have been there. Just you didn't have access to it until your machine was dialed correctly. And in Akhir al-Zaman, in the end of time, there will be awliya. Sheikh Abu Bakr said this. There will be awliya as great as Abdul Qadir al-Jalani. Why? Because think about it. If Sayyidina Isa is going to come, Imam Mahdi is going to come, how great will their companions be? So get it out of your mind that only the great awliya are in the past and all the people are corrupt. One more story. ويروى عن عائشة رضي الله عنها أنها قالت كانت تأتي 40 ليلة 40 nights ما يوقد في بيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مصباح ولا نار. No lamp nor flame would be lit in the Prophet's house. فبما كنتم تعيشون. Someone asked, what did you eat? What did you live on? الأسودين الماء والتمر, water and dates. وعن عائشة بنت سليمان زوج يوسف بن أسباط أنها قالت, the wife of one of the Salihin, she said, قال لي يوسف, Yusuf said, إني لأشتهي من الله ثلاثا, I desire from Allah 3 things. What are they? أشتهي أن أكون حين أموت ليس في ملكي شيء. I don't want to own anything when I die. ولا يكون علي دين, and have no debts. ولا يكون على عظمي لحم, not have any flesh on my bones. In other words, to have fasted so much to be extremely skinny. وَلَقَدْ أُعْطِيَ ذَلِكَ كُلُّهُ, all of this was granted to him. وَلَقَدْ قَالَ لِي فِي مَرَضِهِ, and he told me in his sickness of death, هَلْ بَقِيَ عِنْدَكِ نَفَقَةً, do you have any wealth? Is there any wealth left in the house? قال لا. Then he said, أَيُّ شَيْءٍ تُرِيدِينَ, what do you wish then? I said, أخرج هذه الخابية إلى السوق للبيع. I had something in the house, someone to go out and sell it so I can have some money from that. He said, if you did that, will our life be a little easier? Okay. Everyone there says, إنما باعوها من الحاجة. Okay. Then they went and sold it because they had such great need. She said, وكان عندنا خروف أهداه لنا بعض إخواننا. We had a sheep that someone had given to us. So he sent it off to be sold, and it was sold for 10 silver coins. Then he زلي منها درهما لحنوطي, one silver coin for my burial, all right, and give away the rest in charity. Okay. She said he died and we didn't have a single dirham in the house. Okay. So if you want to live this life, you need a wife that believes in it too. So that's, one of the things we could take away from these stories that we just saw, that I think he's putting that in on purpose, because we just saw that Salman al-Farisi, his wife was down. Yusuf ibn Basat, his wife was down with it. So you have to find a taqiyya salihah. And a taqiyya salihah can have a lot of dunya, but she doesn't, not attached to it. Right? And all of us have a lot of dunya, right? But it's what's the priority is the question, right? Even the greatest of shiyu, you never see them wearing the same thing. One time it's blue, one time it's red, scarves, everything, cars. They live like pretty much like everybody else because they have to appear respectable to these all other people that they're dealing with. But that's not the question. The question is it their priority? They wake up in the morning saying, let's get a Gucci bag, let's get this. Oh, if she gets it, she gets it. But the question is this a priority? Right? Or is the deen the priority? So that's what you have to look for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give everybody قرة عين. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us all قرة عين, which is the coolness of eyes. The coolness of قرة عين means the coolness of eyes, which is the opposite of weeping. Weeping because of anguish makes your eyes hot, and you weep because of that. As the tears are naturally warm. So they warm up your eyes. The coolness of the eye is the opposite. It means happiness and tranquility, and someone completely satisfied and overjoyed with their spouse. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant everyone that. And the rest of the dua says, وَجَعَلْنِي الْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Make me an imam for the mu'mineen, which means salih, rajul salih, alim, faqih, okay, pious and knowledgeable, and min ahl al-jannah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from us this day of Sawm, and anyone who has a khatam, may Allah give you the tawfiq to complete it, inshallah, before Salat al-Maghrib. And we ask Allah ta'ala to always make us people of masajid and people of ibadah. Sallallahu barak ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
I didn't read the comments.
Yeah, it was just the teacher confiscated you.
Great talk. Great with us.
Yes, it was.
Watch.